that we have as Christians in the American church, we don't want people to wrestle. We just want people to believe. And I think it's wrestling is an essential part of coming into who you are and coming into belief for yourself, not just because your family is this. And I think we're uncomfortable with people who wrestle, and we're like, because, we become anxious when people are wrestling, like, oh, we don't know if they're going to be saved or not. And God is actually like, this is perfect. I want you to wrestle. Like, he welcomes people to wrestle with him because he knows that it leads to true belief and to surrender to him and acknowledgement of who he is. And then we can then know who we are.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it leads to formation, right? Like, you think about a wrestler, you think about, and I'm thinking collegiate wrestling, not pro wrestling, like coming off the top ropes. It's not particularly fun to watch. And I've never wrestled collegiately, and I'm sure there's a fun element, but it's all about struggle, and it's sweaty and it's ugly, and you're twisted up in a heap on the floor, and you got to wear your, so you don't get cauliflower ears. It's not particularly like clean and quick. And I think there's a picture in that for the life of faith. And I think that's what God is excited about, is people who are willing to engage with him. Does Jacob get renamed to Israel? He gets renamed to Israel when he's willing to spend all night wrestling with God. And it seems like in his story, it's a physical wrestle, but I think that is the invitation, and probably what God is looking for from his people is a willingness to remain with him and wrestle with him and struggle with him. And I think he was looking for that because he knows that in that process is where we actually get renamed and the family line gets reset. And I think it's a picture for how we become transformed, right?
Okay. God offers this gift of saying, I actually know your identity, but you're gonna have to wrestle with me in order to find it. Yeah. And once you get it, then there's peace, there's brokenness, there's reconciliation. Yeah. How do we know if our foundational identity is flawed? How do we know if it's incorrect? How do we separate that? I guess the answer to that question is we wrestle, right? But
what's the fruit of the identity that you're living into, right? Is it fragile? Does it have to be protected at all costs? I mean, I think another thing I like about the picture of wrestling is that you end up pretty strong at the end of the process, right?
If we're producing bad fruit, then we're given permission to re-examine, is this actually who I am or not? And
I think that's a lifelong process, right? It's like, I'm a big fan of the idea of conversion moments, right? Like, and that's an ongoing, and obviously things will go along for a long time. The kingdom will trickle in, and then for whatever reason, there seems like you come to moments where it is a time to wrestle, and something's gonna give in that moment.
And maybe shame is an indicator that we're embracing the wrong name or the wrong identity.
Hugely.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think the wrestling is what breaks the power of the shame, right? And it's not true shame, it's false shame, false guilt.
Yeah, when Rebecca talks Jacob into tricking her husband, is she just fulfilling God's word, or is there something broken and wrong about the way she's doing that? How could she have handled it differently?
She could have trusted what God said.
And just kind of let it unfold.
And asked him to do it, like, you said this, go ahead, God, fulfill it,
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I wonder if she had done that, they could have been friends the whole time, Jacob and Esau, and he didn't have to dishonor his dad by making it. It's that scene when dad gives the blessing to the wrong son, and poor Esau comes in and has what he thinks is his stolen from him, and that's another heartbreaking episode in this story. and now they hate each other for a long time. If she just let it unfold, she didn't have to like make it happen. In other words, God's big enough to fulfill his promise that it's going to be eventually Jacob would have become in the forefront, and eventually they might not have had to hate each other to do that.
Yeah, in them living into, and particularly in Jacob sort of living into that misnaming, they release hell on earth in a very real sense. That scene when he leaves, like, it's bad. Like, if you every like person you drop into and like empathize with their position, it's heartbreaking. Like, it's heartbreaking for it's heartbreaking for Rebecca, and they don't see each other again, right? Like, it's the last time Jacob sees his mom alive. It's brutal for Esau. It's brutal for Isaac. Isaac's been tricked by two of the closest people in his inner circle. He's been betrayed by them. It's horrible.
And now Jacob's running for his life, and the guy he's running from is a good hunter, so he knows he's looking over his shoulder.
He's been hanging out fences the whole time.
Yeah. Esau's better in the country. Esau's much more likely to track him and to catch up to him, and he's running for his life, wondering if he's going to hear the sound of an arrow after it strikes him or whatever. All right, so let's pick it up where Esau's on the run, and I like the way you put it, that he has an encounter with God as he's running, and then later on he has an encounter with God when he's returning. So let's cover the encounter with God when he's on the run.
Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. When he reached a certain place, he stopped for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones there, he put it under his head and lay down to sleep. He had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth, with its top reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. There above it, and then the footnote says, or it could be interpreted as there beside.
Okay.
And he said,